I overheard her laughing with her friends. I bet $100 he'll confess next month. He's totally simping for me. Everyone burst out laughing. I pretended not to notice. The next month, I invited her and the same group of friends to a luxury restaurant. When the door opened, her triumphant smile froze. I was standing there hand in hand with a charming co-worker. I wasn't trying to listen. I just happened to walk by when I heard my name. "Ethan," someone said, and a few people laughed. Then her voice came, calm, confident, like she knew everyone was paying attention. "I bet $100 he'll confess next month. He's totally simping for me." More laughter, chairs scraping, someone clapping. Just another round of jokes for them. I didn't stop. I kept walking, pretending I didn't hear a thing. My face probably looked normal. My chest didn't. It felt like something inside me had quietly cracked open. I don't even know if I was angry. Maybe for a second, yeah, but it faded fast. What stayed was this weird emptiness. It's strange how fast things shift once you see them clearly. A few minutes earlier, I probably would have smiled if she texted me. Now I just wanted to delete her number. They thought I was simping. Maybe I was, at least until I heard her words echo through the room. I work as a videographer for a small media company. We handle commercials, product shoots, influencer campaigns, the usual social media stuff. It's not Hollywood, but it keeps me busy and lets me meet different people all the time. I like that part. I'm not really the social type, though. On set, I'm usually the quiet one behind the camera, checking the lighting, adjusting the mic, fixing little things nobody notices. I'm not cold. I just don't talk much. People tend to mistake that for being shy or boring. I don't mind. It's easier to be invisible. Less messy that way. Then Sophie came along. She was one of the new faces for a skincare campaign. The first time she walked in, she moved with confidence, chatting with everyone as if she'd known them forever. Her smile caught attention instantly, and people naturally gravitated toward her. At one point, she came over while I was setting up a tripod and said, "So you're the camera guy, huh?" "You better know my good side." I shrugged. "Honestly? I think every side works," she laughed. Smooth answer. That was how it started. From then on, she always found reasons to talk to me during shoots, asking if the lighting looked okay, teasing me about never smiling, or joking that I worked too seriously. I didn't think much of it at first, but it became routine. She'd walk in, flash that grin, and suddenly my day felt lighter. After a few projects, we started texting. Not anything deep. Memes, song links, short conversations about work. Sometimes she vented about clients or schedules, and I'd listen. She said I was easy to talk to, and I took that as something special. I started doing small things for her without thinking. Staying late to color grade her clips first. Taking extra behind-the-scenes shots when she asked. Making sure her lighting was a little softer than everyone else's. She'd thank me with a smile or a playful, "You're the best, Ethan," and I'd act casual even though my heart was flipping. My co-workers noticed before I did. "Man, Sophie's got you working overtime, huh?" I'd just laugh. "No, it's nothing like that." But the truth was I liked how she made me feel. Seen, noticed, like maybe I wasn't just the quiet guy with a camera. There were moments that fed that idea. Like the time she brought me coffee before a morning shoot. "You always look half dead before noon," she said, grinning. Or when she leaned over my shoulder to check playback, close enough for me to smell her perfume. Small, harmless things that start to mean more when you want them to. I never told her how I felt. I didn't think I needed to. We had this rhythm, a kind of unspoken closeness that felt comfortable. Like maybe it was leading somewhere. Looking back now, maybe that's what she liked. Being admired without having to commit to anything real. Maybe I just filled a quiet space in her day. I wasn't in love. I just liked how her attention made me feel. Noticed. It happened about 2 months later during a long day of shooting for a clothing brand. Everyone was tired. Leftover pizza boxes and empty coffee cups scattered around the lounge area. I went to the storage room to grab my gear, planning to head home early. That's when I heard it. "Ethan," someone said, half laughing, half teasing. I froze without thinking. Then Sophie's voice followed, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I bet $100 he'll confess next month. He's totally simping for me." The room cracked up. I didn't catch all the details, something about how he's too nice to even notice I'm joking. But it didn't matter. I stood there for a few seconds, completely still. Then I picked up my bag and walked out like nothing happened. I didn't even feel angry at first. Just blank. It was like all the air got sucked out of my chest, and everything I thought I understood about her suddenly looked different. That night I got home and didn't text her like I usually did. Didn't even check my phone. I just sat there staring at the ceiling, replaying her voice over and over. They think I'm simping. Maybe I was. Maybe that was the truth I didn't want to face. The next morning I went back to work like nothing had happened. She walked in cheerful as usual, waved at me and I nodded back. No smile. She must have noticed because later she asked, "You okay? You seem kinda off today." I said, "Just tired." That was it. After that day, I stopped replying to her messages unless they were strictly about work. No more late-night chats, no small talk, just short, polite answers. She tried for a while, jokes, random photos, little good morning texts, but eventually she gave up. At work, she still talked to everyone else, loud and bright as usual, but with me it felt awkward. Sometimes I caught her glancing over like she wanted to ask something, but I never gave her the chance. I started noticing things I hadn't before. She laughed harder when other guys complimented her. She touched someone's arm casually when she wanted attention. Her mood could flip from sweet to distant in an instant. It wasn't shocking, just obvious. Around that time I got pulled into a new project, a travel video for a small restaurant chain. It was more serious work, and I was glad for the distraction. That's where I met Lena. One of the project coordinators. Lena was different. She didn't flirt or try to impress anyone. Lena focused on her work, joked subtly, and brought a calm energy that made the long days easier. When Sophie found out I was on this new project, she texted, "Wow, ditching us for better models now." I replied casually, "It's just work." That was the first time she didn't text back. Weeks went by. The project with Lena went smoothly, and by the time we wrapped up, we were spending some quiet time together outside of work, grabbing coffee, small dinners after editing sessions. Meanwhile, Sophie's presence at work slowly shifted in my perception. I wasn't annoyed anymore. I wasn't jealous, I just didn't care. And that was the first step toward clarity. A few weeks later, my birthday rolled around. I didn't plan anything big, just a small dinner at a restaurant lounge for the team and a few close collaborators. I booked a private room, nothing flashy, just enough space for everyone to eat, chat, and feel comfortable. When I sent out the invitations, I included everyone who had worked on recent projects. Yes, that meant Sophie and her friends too. Not because I wanted to see them, and definitely not to make a point. I just didn't want to avoid anyone. I was done pretending, done caring about what she thought of me. Sophie, of course, didn't see it that way. She remembered her little bet, the one about me confessing, and in her mind this was the perfect setup. I could almost hear her telling her friends before the party, "I win. Finally he's going to confess." Her friends laughed along, sharing high fives and whispers. I didn't think about it at all, until that night Sophie walked in, triumphant as ever. But my attention was elsewhere, on Lena, calm and smiling. That was all she needed to see, but she froze the second she saw me walking toward her, hand in hand with Lena. It was subtle, just a flicker, but enough. I wasn't standing there blushing, stammering, or giving her any signal of interest. I was relaxed, smiling slightly at Lena, completely present in the moment. Her friends noticed too. Murmurs, stifled laughter, a few confused glances. Sophie tried to maintain her triumphant smile, but it was brittle like a mask that had cracked. I could see it. The party went on. I mingled with everyone, chatting, laughing softly. Lena was calm, easy, natural, drawing attention only when she wanted it. Sophie's smug energy had nothing to hold on to. She attempted jokes, comments, even subtle nudges to regain focus, but it didn't land. Every glance toward me only reminded her. I wasn't hers to toy with anymore. At some point I saw her whisper something to her friends, probably still boasting about winning the bet. I didn't care. The real shock wasn't proving her wrong. It was living my life without giving her any part in it. Later, when the team gathered for a group photo, Sophie came up to me, her expression tense. "Ethan," she said quietly under her breath, "you think this is funny?" I didn't flinch. I didn't smile, didn't laugh. I just looked at her calmly. "Funny?" I asked. "Not at all. I'm just living my life." Her lips pressed into a thin line. You're such an idiot. You let me think I had something, and you're just like this? Like what? I asked evenly. Like I'm happy? Like I'm done pretending. Yeah, exactly like this. She stared at me, momentarily speechless, before snapping, You think you're so clever, huh? Using her to show me up? Whatever. She spun around and stormed toward the table, muttering under her breath. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. Lena squeezed my hand lightly and smiled, oblivious to Sophie's drama, and I realized that's exactly how it should feel. By the time the night ended, Sophie had mostly retreated into the background. Her friends whispered, glanced at her, and a few even chuckled quietly. The triumphant, cocky Sophie had vanished. I didn't gloat. I didn't give a speech. The twist had already happened. She had thought she won before even seeing the reality. And reality had its own way of showing her where she stood. On the way out, Sophie passed me again, fuming slightly, but there was no fire left in her eyes, just the faint residue of shock. She didn't speak. I didn't look. Lena and I walked out together, hands intertwined, light laughter between us. I knew Sophie would stew about this later, maybe talk about it to her friends, maybe even get herself embarrassed again. But that wasn't my problem. I'd stopped playing her game weeks ago, and for the first time in a long while I felt completely free. The next few days at work were quiet in a way that felt different. Sophie still came in, still smiled and laughed, but the energy around her had shifted. I heard from a few colleagues that the "I bet he'll confess" story had come up again, and this time the joke landed on her. Apparently one of her friends had mentioned it in the break room, and the group had started laughing, not with her, but at her. I wasn't there, but I could picture it perfectly. The triumphant smile that once said I won now faltering under the quiet scrutiny of people who saw through her antics. Sophie stormed out, muttering something about it being just a stupid joke. Nobody chased her. Nobody needed to. It had already played out exactly as it should. A couple of days later, she came up to me while I was checking equipment in the studio. She had that tense, impatient expression that said she wanted to unload everything. "You must be happy," she said quietly, almost accusingly. "About what?" I asked, still focused on my monitors. "About me looking like an idiot," she snapped, the words coming out sharper than she intended. I didn't turn immediately. I just paused, letting her frustration hang in the air for a moment. Then I looked up and said calmly, without an ounce of sarcasm, "Sophie, I don't think about you that much." For a second, she seemed almost frozen. She wanted to argue, maybe try to provoke a reaction, but there was nothing to grab onto. I wasn't angry. I wasn't embarrassed. I was completely neutral. "You've changed," she said finally, softer this time, almost like a statement to herself. "I just stopped pretending," I replied. That shut her up. She gave a small sigh, shook her head, and walked away. It was the last real conversation we had. From then on, work felt lighter. Sophie still existed in the same space, but I no longer assigned any weight to her presence. She could smile, joke, or try to get attention. It didn't touch me anymore. I had shifted my attention elsewhere, to something real. Lena and I continued our routine. We grabbed coffee after long shoots, cooked simple dinners together, or just sat quietly editing footage. Being around her was easy, effortless, and honest. One evening, a few months later, we were sitting by the river after a shoot. The lights of the city reflected in the water, flickering with the wind. Lena leaned back, stretched her legs, and asked casually, "Do you ever think about her?" "Not really," I said. "Sometimes I remember how I felt, but that's it." She nodded, smiling softly. "You seem lighter now." "Yeah," I said. "I guess I stopped chasing things that weren't real." It was true. Closure hadn't come from an apology or a grand explanation from Sophie. It had come from the moment I realized I no longer cared. I didn't need anyone to validate my feelings, and I certainly didn't need to play along with someone else's games. The weeks turned into months. Sophie remained a part of the office environment, but her presence no longer stirred anything in me. So I noticed she tried a few times to re-establish small talk, but I was always polite, neutral, unengaged. Each attempt faded, and I didn't mind. Meanwhile, Lena and I continued to grow closer, quietly, naturally. There were no fireworks, no grand gestures, just comfort, respect, and a sense of partnership. I liked that about us. I liked that we didn't have to perform for anyone else's amusement. Sometimes I imagined Sophie still thinking she had won that old bet. Maybe she did. It didn't matter. The game was over for me. I had moved on fully and completely, and in that quiet, ordinary way I felt free, truly free, without the weight of illusions or expectations. Some things are better left in the past. I learned to focus on what really matters quietly, day by day. I had finally done that. I was done chasing illusions. I was finally living my own story.